The massive Chittaugarh Fortress in the south of the Indian province of Rajasthan has for many centuries been the epitome of legendary Rajput heroism. However, the Chittaugarh Fortress did not enter the history books because of its glorious victories, but due to its catastrophic military defeats. Even though most of the Rana Kumbha Palace is now in ruins, its northern facade still provides a fairly good impression of its former majestic splendor. Only 2 towers and a few walls remain of the 2-story main palace of the Rajputs that dates back to the 13th century. The strategically located Table Mountain that overlooks the city of Chittaugarh was first inhabited in the 8th century by the Rajputs of the Guilot clan. In the course of the subsequent centuries, Rajput culture spread across the entire region until the country was eventually invaded by the Muslims. It is believed that Alaud-Din Khalij, the Sultan of Delhi, was, along with his mighty army, the first to lay siege to the Chittaugarh Fortress. According to legend, the Sultan wished to capture the beautiful queen of Chittorgarh, the famous Padmini. However, it was far more likely that it was political interests that led to his siege of the fortress. Defense of the fortress was to prove futile. Rather than face defeat, in 1303, the men of the fortress, including their families, decided to commit suicide. Thus, the legend of the heroic and superhuman courage of the Rajputs was born. While the men attacked their enemy for the last time, the women chose to kill both themselves and their children by throwing themselves onto the Jauhar, a huge fire. The many beautiful religious buildings of Chittorgarh, such as the sensually decorated Meera Temple, are in stark contrast to the brutal history of the fortress. As a loyal follower of Krishna, Princess Meera became famous in the history of Rajasthan because she loved her god more than her husband, and thus sacrificed her life for her belief. In her lifetime, she wrote many religious Hindu song texts and poems. Even today, these bhajans are extremely popular. The temple complex of Sat-Bis-Deori contains several fascinating religious buildings that indicate the former influence of the Jain religion. In the India of today, only 3 to 4 million people follow this religion, the roots of which lie in the Hindu religion. In this area of Chittorgarh, there are 27 Jain sanctuaries, most of which were built in the 15th century, a culturally prosperous time. The Rajputs strengthened and stabilized their power militarily under their leader Rana Kumbha. Indeed, the victory tower of Va Stamba commemorates a triumphant war. The tall and beautifully decorated tower was built in 7 years and celebrated the Rajputs' victory over the Muslim sultans of Malwa and Gujarat. "157 steps lead up to the highest floors of the sandstone tower. Today, the ascent ends on the 8th floor due to a streak of lightning that once struck the top of the tower. The important flowering period of the 15th century also marked the redesigning of the Samideshwara Mahadeo Temple by Rana Makal. It is believed that in 1428, the ruler of Chittorgarh had the old sanctuary transformed into a Shiva temple. But in 1535, the peaceful idyll came to an abrupt and brutal end when the Islamic Sultan of Gujarat, Bahadur Shah, attacked the fortress. Again, the inhabitants of Chittorgarh preferred to commit suicide to battle, and by committing themselves to death by fire than surrender to the overwhelming might of the enemy that lay outside the gates of the fortress. Despite many battles, some sections of the Kalika Mata Temple have survived to the present day. The sanctuary dates back to the 7th century and is one of the fortress' oldest buildings. This religious building is of great importance from an art historical point of view, as it combines both Western and Indian influence with the temple architecture of central India. The Padmini Palace, named after the princess who was inadvertently responsible for the first siege that resulted in the fortress' first mass suicide by fire, was one of the original buildings of this historic site. The present palace was built in the 19th century, long after the fortress was besieged and conquered for the third time in 1567. For one last time, the Rajput women chose to commit mass suicide before the troops of the famous Mughal ruler Akbar could take the fortress. Akbar had broken the resistance of Chittorgarh once and for all. Since then, the fortress was never again inhabited. Yet the legend of the Rajputs, who retained their courage and pride even to the death, lives on to the present day.